Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is form, right? Which again, I think some people are like, I have no idea how to hear form or see form or understand form. It just sounds like music and I don't get it, right? So I'm going to load up here on the screen my handy dandy, oh, my dice. Maybe I'm going to load up here on the screen. Screen mirroring, band room. Yes. Okay, so when I open my handy dandy Hey Jude example up here on the screen, I'm going to show you where the form happens to be, right? And those of you following along on the video, it's in the classroom, so hang out and you'll figure it out. Okay, so the very first thing that happens in any music is called what? You guys remember? The first thing that happens musically, we give it a letter name. Does anybody remember the letter name we give it? A. Good job, right? We could call it anything. We could call it blue. We could call it pink. I don't care. But we call it A because it's the first letter in the alphabet, and as musicians, we have more stuff to worry about than calling things really secret names, right? Although we have secret names for other things. And maybe it's not working, so I might have to just do this old school and do it this way. All right. So in this particular tune, there is no there's no like introduction, so it starts right at the A section. Okay? So this first thing starts and it's A. Sorry. And there's some harmony that happens underneath it, right? Now, if you look at the next little chunk, right? That took us down to about the third line in the second measure, right? To make it better. You see where we're at, right? Okay, so now when you look at the very next thing that happens, and then you start to compare it to the very beginning, right? What do we have? What does that sound like? Huh? It sounds exactly like the beginning. Now, some of you get hung up because you're biased, right? I talk about bias a lot, right? We talked about bias at the beginning of the year. We get hung up on the fact that at the beginning it says, hey Jude, don't make it bad, take a sad song and make it better. And the second time it comes by, it says, hey Jude, don't be afraid, you are made to go out and get her, right? Which means that like in your head, you're hearing different lyrics, and so you're like, it doesn't sound the same. But when I play it on piano, doesn't it sound the same? Here's the beginning, right? Then we go into the second part. Sorry, bad piano player. Right? And so now we have A again, yeah? And once I removed the lyrics, was it easier to hear that it sounds the same? So how many of you think you have a lyric bias? Like, I listen to lyrics because I'm associated that way, right? And so therefore, if the lyrics are different, it sounds totally different to me, right? And some of it, too, is that we have some words that have different number of syllables, right? And we have a different number of syllables, then sometimes it also makes it sound different because we tweak the rhythm just a little bit to make it fit those syllables. But instead of being like, oh, it's totally different, we just call it what? A prime, right? We just give it an A prime, right? It's slightly different than A, but not enough different, okay? Okay, but then here's what happens, right? So I'm on the second page, right in the middle of the page, right where we go, to make it better. now we have this part. What does that sound like? Totally different, right? No matter the lyrics or anything, there's no way that that sounds like the beginning. So what do we call that guy? B, right? So there's our little B section that happens, right? And then we have this, so that's the bottom of page 2, and then we go to like the very end of page 2 to the beginning of page 3. What's that? B prime. It's slightly different than B, right? But it's not enough different that we call it C. Okay? So we call it B prime. Okay? So we had beginning, A, kind of a long phrase, A, another kind of long phrase. Then we get into this section here, which we call the B section, right? And it's got a B and then a B prime. Can you follow me on the, can we do like a little traveling thing here? Right? So, what we end up seeing, this is way more anticlimactic than me having it all on the digital thing. So we had A, and we had A prime, sure, why not, right? And then we had B, and we have B prime. And then you can take this little A and A prime section, and you can group that into a larger chunk of the piece, right? A bigger slice of that, and you can call it big A. And you can take this little chunk of stuff, and you can call this big B. Are you with me? Right? So it's just another way of taking, just like you do with any other form, you take an essay and you break it down into like your introduction, your body, and your conclusion. Or you take a book, and you break it into chapters, and then you break down those chapters into paragraphs, and then you break down those paragraphs into sentences. Music has form also, right? And we can just keep breaking it down into smaller and smaller chunks until we're down to that individual note value, or that melody, or the harmony. You with me? Not so scary, right? Okay. We need to pause.